Welcome to The Rabbi and the Shrink. This is Dr. Margarita Guri, the Shrink, Dr. Red Shoe, and this is my favorite rabbi,
Yonason Goldson.
And the rabbi and I are honored to have with us Sam Horn. Hi, Sam.
Hey, I've been looking forward to sharing some ideas with your viewers and listeners.
And we've been looking forward to learning. And once again, I thank the rabbi for having met you and brought you to the show. I think that's it's very exciting. When I was getting to know Sam online, the one thing that struck me is she walks the walk and talks the talk. Listen to some of her book titles: Tung Fu, How to Deflect, Disarm, and Diffuse Any Verbal Conflict. Tung Fu, Get Along Better with Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere. Pop, Create the Perfect Pitch, Title, and Tagline for Anything. If you're looking at these titles, you can see quickly that this is a wordsmith who helps individuals position their brand and their message so they can connect meaningfully and hopefully financially make it worth their whiles as well. I'm going to be putting links to all the different things that she's done. The main one is samhorn.com. So let's get started. What are you working on these days that you think everyone needs to know?
One of the things I'm excited about is my writing community. It's called Stop Wishing, Start Writing. And 60-second story. I helped start and run the Maui Writers Conference, which Writers Digest called the best writers conference in the world. And we gave people an opportunity to jump the chain of command. And you could pitch your screenplay to Ron Howard. You could pitch your novel to the head of Doubleday. It was just unprecedented. And what happened is that it was so exciting being around other authors, talking about our work, accessing best practitioners. And then we'd go home and life would intervene and we'd put our projects on the shelf and they'd never get finished. And so the purpose of this writers conference online is like going to 1 year round, is that you always have encouraging and support and guidance and ideas you can put into use immediately. So that is what I'm excited about these days.
Well, you should be. I mean, one of the challenges I think that many of us have is we'll go to conferences, we'll take programs, we'll learn new things, we'll read things in books, and we're all fired up, and then it just gets put on a shelf somewhere because life is distracting. And, we want to do things that are worth doing and to help people. It's actually one of the teachings of the sages that somebody who empowers another to do something is considered greater than somebody who does it himself.
Wow.
And if you ever had the experience of helping your children do homework, and sometimes it's just easier if I do it myself, but I've already passed fourth grade. So it's a wonderful gift that you're giving people by providing a service like this.
Thank you so much. Is that all of the research shows that when we're in community, that is when we sustain effort and performance. It's why Alcoholics Anonymous, Weight Watchers have been so successful, is that we're not going it alone. And when we run out of discipline or when we run out of conviction or faith, there's someone else who's been there, done that, and who can be the wind underneath our wings. And that's one of the intent, is that we have an inside the author studio, kind of our version of Bravo's Inside the Actor Studio, where we interview best-selling authors. It's like, pull back the curtain. Did you have a dark night of the soul? How did you get through that? How did you get your agent? It's like, what was something that surprised you about the process? And when we have access to people who have been there, done that, and who reveal their lessons learned, it's a shortcut so that we don't have to learn them the hard way.
Well, I know that you're going to give us so much information. So before people get into listening too much, at the end of the podcast, what can they do to not just be overwhelmed and put you on a shelf? What do you suggest they do so that they take action with all the things that you say, or at least some of them?
Well, there's something we can do right now. And in 17 years of Maui Writers Conference, this is the only thing all of our authors agreed on. Ready? Ink it when you think it. We make a living from our mind. And we may get an idea. We think, oh, I should remember that. Oh, I should use that in a blog tomorrow. Oh, I should talk about that with my client or with my employees. And then it's out of sight and out of mind. That's why we're supposed to jot thoughts when they're hot. We're supposed to muse it so we don't lose it. So I hope you get paper and pen right now, or you get otter.ai, or you get Evernote on your computer. And if something occurs to you, if it gets your eyebrows up, write it down. Ralph Waldo Emerson said we should watch those gleams of light which flash across the mind from within. Let's not just watch them, let's write them down.
That's
And in fact,
brilliant advice.
Tchaikovsky used to carry a pad with him all the time because musical ideas would pop into his head. And he said if he didn't write them right down, they just go out the other side.
He says, and let's really imprint this. This is not petty, this is pivotal. It is, if you are a creative individual, our life is our lab. We are constantly hearing or seeing things that resonate with us. And if we ignore them, the muse gets ticked. The muse thinks, I'm giving you gold here. You're not even paying attention. So I promise you that if you make your life your lab, and that if something gets your eyebrows up, it means it broke through your mental screen, that it has some value that will scale the relevancy and the recency of your work. And if you make a practice of writing it down, you are going to add value to more people because it will get their eyebrows up. It will help make your work fresh and resonant and organic and original in a way that few people's work is.
Wow. And that reminds me of something the rabbi was saying. You were talking about marketing in integrity. Did I get that quote right, Rabbi?
Yeah, marketing the integrity, or actually marketing the truth.
Truth. Okay.
The truth is something we would like to believe sells itself. But we know from experience that it just doesn't work that way. And that, a good soundbite can promote what's true or can promote what's not true. Because we know marketing, we know salespeople, we know the business. And how wonderful is it to be able to communicate an idea that's true, that's valuable, that's going to help people in a way that makes it so compelling that they are going to take advantage of it for their own benefit. And then that's why, Sam, I love your single word of intrigue. Because when you get people, I taught high school for 23 years. And one of the classic rules of teaching school and of speaking is you need to start with a hook. You need to get people on the hook. Because once you do, then they're going to have to shake themselves off, as opposed to not having them there in the beginning. So, it's part of our ethical mission. It's not enough to be ethical. It's not enough to teach ethics. It's our job to get other people to recognize how important ethics are in their lives for the benefit of all of us.
Boy, what you just said is profound. And once again, I hope people have paper and pen in front of them. We're going to follow up on what you just said, Rabbi, and make it actionable. First, put a vertical line down the center of your paper. People ask how my mind works. I juxtapose everything. I think it is the quickest way to make a complex idea crystal clear and actionable. So right now, vertical line down the center, and over on the left, put important. Just because something is important doesn't make it interesting. Over on the right, put interesting. Now, you just brought up an intriguing concept. It is our ethical mission to make what's important intriguing, correct? So how do we do that? Over on the left, please put forgettable, because a lot of ideas are infobesity. They're forgettable. They go in one ear, they go in one eye, out the other. So how can we make them over on the right memorable? How can we shift from infobesity to intrigue, from being forgettable to memorable? Would you like a quick technique on how anyone can do that?
Yes, please.
Okay, please write down AIR. Let's use the acronym or the acrostic AIR. This is how we craft language or an idea into a soundbite or a phrase that pays or a meme that makes money. So A is alliteration. Just listen to these words: bed, toilet, and shower, Dunkin' croissants, Rolls Jaguar, best purchase, clunky, right? Now let's make them alliterative. Alliteration are words that start with the same sound. It makes us instantly eloquent. It makes our language lyrical. Bed, Bath and Beyond, Dunkin' Donuts, Best Buy. So look at the action you want people to take and the change you want people to make. Okay, right now, all of you have a project in mind. Something you want to get funding for, something that you want people to sign up for, something you want people to change a belief in. What is the action you want them to take? What is the change you want them to make? And distill it into one sentence. Now we're going to use the airtight sound bite to make that sentence pop. So first, does it have alliteration? Are you using words that start with the same sound? Because if you are, you're going to make it resonate in a way that people find it harmonious and musical and pleasing to the ear and mind and heart. All right, let's go to IR and then I'll stop talking and we can do it, or let's have questions or comments. I is iambic meter. When you put it in a beat, you make it easy to repeat. When you put it in a beat, you make it easy to repeat. Rabbi, I can only imagine you know about the power of rhythm, about the oratory that is visceral because it resonates with the beating of the heart. It has a cadence to it. When when we say takes a licking and keeps on ticking, I can't believe I ate the
Whole
Whole
thing.
thing. Those are 50 years old, and yet they are on the tip of our tongue, the top of our mind. Las Vegas said what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas has driven more than $1 billion worth of business because it sticks in people's mind. So read your sentence. Does it have a rhythm, a cadence that makes it easy to repeat? R is for rhyme. Rhyme is sublime because it's remembered over time. So A is alliteration. I better practice what I preach, right? I is iambic meter or inflection, and R is rhyme. Now, some people may be thinking, this is just semantics. It's just wordplay. No, it's not wordplay. It's word profits. Here's a quick example. It changes lives. Is that years ago, the US government was concerned about injuries and fatalities in car accidents. They mounted a multi-million-dollar campaign, and they mounted it and nothing happened. Why? Because it was so clunky. Buckle up for safety. Do you see those words don't ring? They don't resonate. They're quickly forgotten. And so they went back to the drawing board, and this time they came up with something that rhymed. You probably know what I'm talking about. What is it?
Click it or ticket.
Click it or ticket. Boom. Now listen, fatalities went down. Injuries went down. They changed lives by thinking about the action they want people to take and the change they want them to make and crafting it into a sentence that has saved lives. That's the power of what we're talking about to make the important intriguing and the forgettable memorable.
Wow, I'm blown away. That's not so easy for me.
That was
All right.
a mic drop moment. That was...
Absolutely. All right. So let's think about the Rabbi and the Shrink. We came to that name organically. I got disappointed in America because of the incivil and unkind and hateful way we were all tweeting and doing things like that. And I was so disappointed. And I'm from Cuba, so mijita, no. I thought, no, we're not going to be that way. We can do better. So I thought, well, I'm going to do a podcast. And immediately the Rabbi popped into my head as someone I wanted to be as a co-host. So when I made the first meeting, we just said, I wrote down the Rabbi and the Shrink. I said it out loud and I started laughing and I said, maybe that's the title. So I don't know if that's a good title or not. And I don't know what advice you would give us. And then Those of you in the audience, please ask for advice as well. Let her do what she does best.
It is
So
kind
what
of
do you think?
interesting that the shrink and the rabbi, which could just as easily have been, it doesn't seem to
It
have
doesn't
that
sound good.
cadence to it.
It doesn't.
Okay, it's very interesting. See, you are listening for the tonality of it. You're listening for the musicality of it. And if we listen correctly, every writer knows this. Before we send something off, we read it out loud, because when we read it out loud, we'll self-edit. That doesn't sound right. That sounds too long. That's confusing. And hearing it will help us correct it and clean it up so it sings. So let's talk about, see, I think you have brand equity right now in the rabbi and the shrink. And so I think it's working. So I would continue that to honor your brand equity. Now we get to play though, is that put a vertical line down the center, and over on the left, I just took notes on what you said, Dr. Red Shoe. You were talking about hateful. So see, if we put hateful on the left, over on the right, we're going to play heartful, right? From hateful to heartfelt. Over on the left is a cruel, how to be kind in a cruel world, right? Over on the left, put cancel culture, and now put compassionate. So do you see, the beauty of this is that you show the shift. You acknowledge what's wrong or what's undesirable. And then your podcast, your programs, your mission, the river that runs through your work is how to shift us from a cancel culture to be kind, from cruel to be compassionate, from being hateful to being heartful. And that's just one idea about how in your descriptions of your work, in listening for the sound bites that popped out of your interviews, if you continue to do this, it will elevate the description of your work in a way, once again, people will respond to it because it's just uncommon to craft things so elegantly.
As you so well just now demonstrated. Wow.
It's interesting. There is a very disturbing study that found that people who are known as ethicists demonstrate no more and perhaps less ethical behavior than average.
Wow.
And there's speculation about why that should be. I remember hearing that the books that are most frequently stolen or not returned to the library are in the ethics section.
Wow.
Which, you have to laugh, but it's really distressing. Some say that when if you keep things cerebral, if it's all philosophical, then what I end up doing is I end up developing tricks to excuse and rationalize the behavior that I want, and it never translates into my actual conduct. And so what the conversation we're having is that, Sam, is you are demonstrating how to articulate a message. Your message is to be articulate, and you are articulating that. So even though it's all verbal, you are walking the talk. And that's a principle that we want to extend to every aspect of our lives, that consistency, that integrity, right? Integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole person, right? And it's a discipline. As you started off saying, we need to, and in fact, our acronym for ethics, the S is self-discipline. Because whatever the
share
boxes
that,
are.
Rabbi. I love your acronym. We made some changes, mostly his. I just added one letter.
Yeah, so the E is empathy. We want to be sensitive to what people are feeling. The T is trust or trustworthiness. We want people to trust us, and that means we have to trust them. The H is humility, that we're willing to reconsider and hear other people's points of view. And part of that is to be inquisitive, which means that we're curious and we're interested in other people's points of view. The C is courage, because sometimes it's hard to contemplate that maybe I don't have the whole picture. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to reconsider. And then the S of self-discipline is it's not a list to check the boxes. It's a process that we have to keep going through over and over and over again.
See, you've just modeled something my high school debate coach told me. He said, Sam, our expertise is perceived by the organization of our thoughts, right? See, we can be the world's expert. However, if we're all over the map, people are gone, right? They conclude we don't know what we're talking about because we're not clear and organized. That framework of ETHICS, empathy and trust, and is it humility? H for humility,
Yes.
I for inquisitiveness, C for courage, S for self-discipline. You have just taken an enormous topic and you have distilled it. You have done our homework for us by distilling it into memorable best practices that are easy to remember, hard to forget. So see, you care about this topic and you're doing the heavy lifting. You understand that if I want other people to care about it and access it and do it and remember it, then it's my responsibility as a communicator to make that possible for them. And you just did. Kudos.
He's very good at that.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about another idea that makes this easy to remember and hard to forget?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I think one of your guests on the podcast is an inventor and is looking for funding and is looking for how perhaps she can get people interested in her invention. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so let's all think about something and we want to get a yes to it. We want approval on this project. We want funding for this idea or invention. We want the green light or the go ahead for this initiative. So, me, vertical line down the center, over on the left, put tell. Have we been taught to tell people what we're going to tell them and then tell them and then tell them what we told them? That is a prescription for being a bore, snore, or chore. Really, it's Nancy F. Cohen. This is not just my opinion. Nancy F. Cohen from Harvard found goldfish have longer attention spans than we do. Goldfish, 9 seconds. Human beings, 8 seconds. So see, if we try to tell people about our idea or our project or our invention, it's like probably boring or confusing, and confused people don't say yes. And they don't keep listening. So over on the right, we're going to ask. In particular, we're going to do these 3 steps. Now, first, the story, because I believe one way to make infobesity intriguing is to give a real life example. So here's a real life example. And then if you would like, we'll unpack how we can do this. So I think some of you may know that I was the pitch coach for Springboard Enterprises, which has helped women entrepreneurs generate 26 billion in valuation and funding. Billion with a B. This is Robin Chase of Zipcar, Gail Goodman, Constant Contact.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And congratulations to them for building these businesses that have added so much value. So Kathleen Callender of PharmaJet was a client, and she came to me, Sam, I got good news and I got bad news. And I said, what's the good news? She was speaking in front of a room full of investors at the Paley Center in New York. I said, that's fantastic news. What's the bad news? And now Rabbi, you've seen my TEDx talk, so that I tell this story in the TEDx talk because it's helped people around the world get people intrigued in what it is they care about. So when I asked Kathleen, what's the bad news? She said, I'm going at 2:30 in the afternoon and I only have 10 minutes. She said, Sam, you can't say anything in 10 minutes. How can I talk about, our patent pending and our clinical trials and our financial exit and our team credentials? And I said, Kathleen, you don't have 10 minutes. You have 60 seconds. You're going at 2:30 in the afternoon. They will have heard 16 other presentations by that time. Well, here's the 60-second opening we came up with that not only helped Kathleen get millions in funding, she was Business Week's most promising social entrepreneur of that year. Okay, 60 seconds. Ready?
Ready.
Okay, now remember, this was a few years ago. Statistics have changed in the years since. What she said was, did you know there are 1.8 billion vaccinations given every year? Did you know up to a third of them are given with reused needles? did you know we're spreading and perpetuating the very diseases we're trying to prevent? Imagine if there were a one-use, painless inoculation for a fraction of the current cost. You don't have to imagine it. We're doing it, and she's off and running. Now, are your eyebrows up?
Yeah.
Do you know how Kathleen used to describe what she did? That it was a medical delivery device for subcutaneous inoculations. It's a what? It's a what? Look at those eyebrows. See, when we explain to people what we do, or we try and tell them about their project, if their eyebrows are crunched up like this, it means they're confused. And once again, confused people don't say yes. Our goal is to get the eyebrows up, and here's how you can do it. First step, ask 3 did you know questions about the problem you're solving, about the issue you're addressing, or about the need you're meeting. And you're thinking, Sam, where do I find these startling statistics? You GTS that. I guarantee you, whatever your industry is, your problem is, your issue is, if you put into Google search, what are surprising statistics about blank, about the pharma industry, about, stress, about parenting, about leadership, you're going to come up with something even you didn't know. And if you don't know it and your eyebrows go up, chances are your listeners' eyebrows will go up. That means you just got what you cared about in their mental door, because they're smarter than they were a moment before. All right, next step. It's for imagine. That one word has the power to pull us out of our preoccupation. Imagine this and this and this. What are the attributes of your invention? What are the benefits of your project? What are the potential results of whatever it is you're proposing? Now, how do you come up with those? Let's go back to Kathleen Callender. What are her decision makers thinking? Well, they're probably thinking about those painful inoculations, so we made it painless. They're probably thinking about those reused needles, so we made it one use. Most decision makers care about money, so we said a fraction of the current cost. Do you see how in a world of infobesity, we distilled into one succinct sentence? Who wouldn't want that? That's your goal. Imagine this and this and this, and people are thinking, sounds good. Who would want that? Go to your third step. You don't have to imagine it. We're doing it. Now you come in with your precedents and your evidence to show this isn't speculative or pie in the sky. This is a done deal. You and your team have done it. Here's the track record or the results. Here's the testimonial. Here's the article. You can do all that in 60 seconds. Ask 3 did you know questions. Imagine this, this, this. You don't have to imagine it. That's how we get people intrigued in what's important.
Well, I'm intrigued. The whole thing is fascinating. You have really done the heavy lifting on that. You've unpacked one of the secrets, and thanks for sharing it. It's very cool.
One of the, I'm a big devotee of George Orwell.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his quotes is that, I may not get this exactly right, but essentially, if unclear thought causes unclear speech, then unclear speech can also cause unclear thought. In other words, we think in words.
Wow.
So if we don't have command of our language, whether because we don't have the skills or we don't have the discipline, then we simply aren't communicating clearly, but we also aren't thinking clearly. We don't have a grasp on our own ideas. And you've done such a beautiful job, Sam, of demonstrating that less really is much, much more. And that, I can remember distinctly 2 lectures I attended where the lecturer had something really worthwhile to say. And I cannot for the life of me tell you what it was because it took so long to make the point that all I ended up with was a sense of frustration. Will you just get to it? And in the end, it didn't stick.
Yeah.
I can still remember the lectures where I wanted the information, and it just wouldn't stick because it was communicated so, frankly, ineptly.
Wow.
And so again, it comes up to our responsibility. I have something of value. My job is to get it to you. It's not your job to get it from me.
Boy, this is near and dear to my heart. In fact, Seth Godin gave the cover endorsement for my book Pop, and he said, words matter, every one of them. And this book will change the way you use them. And another project I'm working on right now, I'm very excited about, it's the updating of Tongue Fu. Tongue Fu has been out in the world for 25 years.
Wow.
And now just please put a vertical line down your center. Over on the left, put words to lose. And over on the right, please put words to use. Because Rabbi, what you just said is that words are our responsibility. I went for a morning walk and there was a woman with her 2 young kids. And you know what she's saying to them? Stop throwing rocks. A minute later, guess what they're still doing? They're throwing rocks. What does she say? When are you going to listen to me? I said, stop throwing rocks. What are they doing a moment later? They're throwing rocks. What does she do? She says, that's it. We're leaving. The kids are crying. She's upset. They leave. Now, here's the thing. That's why the new name for the Tongue Fu book is Never Yell at a Barking Dog. Right? Because if you yell at a barking dog, he thinks, great, now we're both barking. And in our world where people are angry and so forth, we react to that. We use words with that, right? And we make it worse. So as you're saying, over on the left is stop throwing rocks. So I'll ask, what words could we use instead to get the desired behavior instead of the dreaded behavior? Well, it's like put the rocks down, come on over to the swing, right? Or give me the rocks and let's head over to the slide. It's like we ask for what we do want. You're a psychologist, Dr. Red.
It's called
So much of
prescribing
your
the
work is
symptom.
about this.
Yeah, it's called prescribing the symptom. Say, let me see who has the biggest rock or the most blue rock or whatever. Bring it to me. Good job. Let's see if you can collect more. So instead of stopping something, you've now put it under your control and everyone's moving forward. So it's the same thing. That's interesting. The other thing I love that you're so good at, and the rabbi's really good at it too, is to not just tell people stuff, but to intrigue people enough and invite their feelings to the party so that it means something. And I think people remember what moves them. And I think that you showed that beautifully. I'm incredibly excited by what you're saying. I can't wait to work on my sheet of paper.
Thank you. And see, thank you for picking up real life examples. I believe are so much more useful than rhetoric.
Always.
We can talk all day, right, about concepts and philosophies and principles. Can we ground them in real life examples? Because it is a Socratic face-saving way for people to come to it on their own. So instead of feeling scolded or even lectured or taught, they're going, oh, I just did that yesterday and now I have a better way. So it's like, instead of don't interrupt me, it's like, please let me finish. Instead of, you better not come in late again, please be 5 minutes early tomorrow. And so once again, we can take responsibility for using words that plant what we do want instead of punish what we don't want.
It's lovely. I was teaching a class and this one student, extremely bright young lady, and I've always relied heavily on the Socratic method. And I still remember that she at one point says, why can't you just tell us the answer?
Oh.
And of course, the point was I wanted to show them that they could come up with the answers on their own. But again, it takes work. It's so much easier to sit back and be spoon-fed. But then we never learn how to pick up the spoon.
As one of my clients once said, don't make me think, just tell me what to say.
Wow.
That's interesting, isn't it? Well, eventually everyone has to get to the point where they're excited about what they have to say. And I think that's part of what you're doing, Sam. You're giving people ways of thinking about it so they could step up in an exciting, interesting way and share what it is they were born on earth to share. And they could share it in an interesting way.
And let's bring up something else that I think is the river in our conversation. Over on the left, let's put arrogant, and over on the right, let's put offering. Because I know a lot of people, 69, do we have time for a 90-second story?
We do.
Okay. Very first year of the Maui Writers Conference, I'm walking the beach to get my intro straight. And here's a woman sitting on the beach crying. And I went over, I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "No, I'm not okay." I said, "What's happening?" And do you know what she said? "I don't belong here."
Oh,
I said, "You don't belong here?" She said, "Who am I to write?" She said, "It's like you're putting yourself up on the pedestal." "I know you don't." "It's kind of arrogant." She said, "I just don't know if I belong here." And I asked her, "Well, what do you want to write about?" And she and her husband had adopted a biracial child who was very challenging. And she said, "I went to the library, I went to the bookstore to try to find books to help. And there are all these Pollyanna books about what a blessing it is to be an adoptive parent. They just made me feel worse." She said, "I want to write the book I need, I can't find." And I said, "What's an example about what you want to write about?" She thought about it and she said, "I want to write about the time that Ari was 3 years old and I fixed spaghetti for dinner. And he reaches across the table and he grabs a handful of spaghetti and he throws it in my face. And my first thought was, my son would never have done that." And the shame that I felt that that thought had even occurred to me. And I said, "What else?" And she said, "I want to write about, no matter how challenging Ari is, when it's time to send pictures of him to his birth mother, I edit out the cute ones because I live in daily fear she's going to change your mind and want him back."
oh,
And I said, "Jana, the question isn't, are you perfect? The question isn't, do you have a PhD or has this ever been written about before?" I said, "You know what the question to ask is? Would someone reading my book benefit? Because if someone reading your book will benefit, not only do you have the right to write, you have a responsibility to write." You know, have we ever thought about it that way, that lessons learned in our head help no one? That if we have ideas that are an offering, not coming from arrogance, I know and you don't, and I'm going to teach you. No, here are some things I've learned along the way, and I'm going to offer them in the hopes they might have value for you. You have a responsibility. And if you go on Amazon and you look up Secret Thoughts of an Adoptive Mother by Jana Wolf, there's her book. It's been out in the world for more than 20 years now. She says not a week goes by that she doesn't get an email from someone who says, "I thought I was the only one."
oh, that's wonderful. Well, that was brilliant and so very kind how you managed that. So I have a question that I know the rabbi and I have been addressing. We know many people who truly have wonderful things to share.
Mhm.
And yet the way they think of themselves and the way they think about business keeps them from presenting themselves as if they are a valuable business commodity. And so they don't ask for the money, or they don't ask for enough, or they're apologetic about it. And I know you could address this issue. I have faith.
Okay, well, now you know me in stories, right? And by the way, I really do believe that the best way, hopefully, to make the point is to give the example. So if we have time for the example and we'll unpack it, it's okay, I'm going to condense this here. My sons, Tom and Andrew, grew up on Maui. We would go for walk and rolls every night. One time when Tom was about 8, I asked him what he wanted to be and what he wanted to do. And he just kind of looked up at the sky and said, "Something to do with up there." And little could we have predicted that he would end up going to Virginia Tech and majoring in aerospace engineering, astronomy, math, and physics. And a week before he graduated, up on the Virginia Tech job board was a job opening at Mission Control and Johnson Space Center at NASA in Houston, Texas. So Tom filled out his application and he sent it to me. And he asked what I thought. I said, Tom, it's brilliant. You just left off one thing. He said, what's that? I said, you forgot to mention that you and your collegiate team won the international competition to put a manned mission on Mars.
Oh,
Guess what
wow.
Tom said. Guess what Tom said? But Mom, that would be bragging. I said, Tom, put yourself in the shoes of the decision makers. You are one of many. You're one of many people who have a 4-point GPA, one of many people who have multiple majors. You're one of many people who, if you want that job, if you think you would do a good job at that job, it is your responsibility to tell them how you are one of a kind in a way that is relevant to that position that they haven't heard before. Tom put that on his application. He got the interview. He got the job. Every day, Tom works in mission control, where he and his team are responsible for the environment on top of the ISS. He noticed a very attractive astronaut scheduler, asked her out on a date. He married her. They now have 2 little astronauts. And none of that would have happened if Tom hadn't stepped up on his behalf and understood it is not bragging to talk about what we've done that we would like to offer that could contribute to someone else.
And it is not sinful to be paid for something that changes the world and saves lives.
You know, there's a delightful story from the couple thousand years ago, when the sages were discussing the state of spirituality in the world and the decline of spirituality in the world. And one of the sages says, you know, in this generation, humility has disappeared from the world. And listen to what one of his colleagues said. What about me? Well, how could a person say, what about me? I'm humble. I'm still humble. If you say that, you're not humble, right? No. Because I love Rick Warren's quote that humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. And I can be, if I'm genuinely humble, I recognize that. If I'm genuinely talented, I recognize that. What makes me humble? If I don't think it makes me better than other people, if I don't exploit it at the expense of others, if I recognize that God gave me that ability for me to use in the service of others. You know, if I'm the greatest pitcher in baseball, it's not. I don't. There's not false humility. I don't say, oh, you know, no, I'm not really that good. Well, that's just ridiculous. Of course, I'm that good. I can still be humble. It's a question of how I relate to my talents.
Absolutely.
And you know, the greatest gift, we say it's better to give than to receive. So what's the greatest gift you can give somebody else? The opportunity to give. And what you're describing here, Sam, is that by helping others recognize how they can use their talents and their abilities and create opportunities, you're giving them the opportunity to give to the world. And there really is no greater gift.
And the only thing I'm going to change is gift is a word we're using in a fancy way, but that doesn't mean it has to be free. I do believe that anyone giving a gift can be a professional and expect to be paid well and regularly. And this is something that I deal with our colleagues. We're both speakers regularly, whether it's just an informal conversation or a coaching. If we don't believe in our worth, why should anyone else? But we have to continue to earn it. We can't get sloppy and lazy.
Well, Doctor, I've heard it said that in psychology, that therapy doesn't help unless you pay for it. Is that right?
Well, and there's a lot of truth to it. Even if it's just, even people who don't have the money, I make them give hours to somebody else. You know, when I had my practice, now I don't. But yes, I think it's our value. And just to joke, my twin sister and I always say, but I am the most modest or humble in this case. We can say, no, I am the most humble. And so we laugh at, we don't have to fall into that to know our worth. So Sam, I think you are bursty. So what I'm going to do is ask the rabbi to do the word of the day, and then we'll come back to you. And I know you have some pithy sound bites for us, because I could see it in your face. Rabbi?
The word of the day, which is chosen just for our guest, Sam Horn. Inconcinnity. Inconcinnity, which is a lack of proportion and congruity, or inelegance. And I don't even really have to explain much about this anymore, because Sam, what your whole message is taking ideas that may appear to be incongruous and demonstrating how they fit together. Expressing ourselves in a way that is elegant, because that elegance communicates the idea that is going to help other people. And in our quest to be ethical, as we've already said, it is our responsibility to be disciplined, to be clear, to be compelling, to be intriguing, so that others will recognize the value of our message in a way that benefits them and those around them.
Wow. Well, agree. Thank you. And I have so many things to say. I'm going to try and select one that's in alignment with what you just said. Do we have time for like a 60-second story again?
Yes, we do.
Sure.
Okay. So 6 years ago, last week, I had finished a very intense consult, and my son Andrew called, and he sensed something in my voice, and he said, "What's up, Mom?" And I said, "Andrew, I'm so exhausted. I don't even know if I can get on the plane tonight. I've got to fly back to DC, then fly back to the West Coast for a keynote." He said something so profound, it changed my life. He said, "Mom, there's something about you I don't understand. You have your own business. You're an entrepreneur. You can do anything you want, and you're not taking advantage of it." And I thought, out of the mouths of 20-somethings. And I gave away 95% of what I owned, and I headed out on my year by the water. And I interviewed people, are you happy? If so, why so? If not, why not? And what I discovered is that the vast majority of people feel that happiness is selfish, and that responsibility and duty comes first. And I will always remember interviewing a 35-year-old young man who had a full-time job, as did his wife, 2 kids, one with special needs. And I said, "What's your dream?" And do you know what he said? "I don't dream anymore. It's too painful."
Oh,
And see, I think we all agree that doing what lights us up is not selfish. It is our gift. Pablo Picasso said, "Finding our gifts is the purpose of life. Giving away our gifts is the meaning of life." And if there's something that we do well, if we've invented something, if we've launched something and we think it could add value to others and it lights us up, it is not selfish to do that. It is a way to add value in the world that is our contribution. And so I guess if I were going to say something in summary, it's Paulo Coelho said, "One day you're going to wake up and there won't be any time left to do what you've always wanted to do." And in doing what we've always wanted to do that lights us up, we will often find that that is our gift and our contribution, because it lights other people up as well.
wow. I'm grateful you
lovely.
found your gift.
Yes, well, thank you, Sam. That was a wonderful way of wrapping up this discussion, and for sharing your wisdom with us and inspiring us and giving us clear tactics that we can use to actually put this wisdom into practice. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you to both of you. It's been a joy.
Doctor, do you have a last word for us?
Oh, I always have a last word, sir. My last word, I'm going to stick to what Sam had said about happiness. So as a psychologist, one of the things I think that people do in their thinking and then their efforts is to make a mistake. Happiness cannot be a goal. It is a choice, but it is the outcome of making good choices, of being who we need to be, doing what we need to do, being good people. So many people say, I want to be happy. Well, then do the work. Think about what you need. Now, who would have thought that a woman like you would get rid of all this stuff and go live on the water? Well, it makes perfect sense to me because I know people who follow their instincts and step away from the herd or their sense of obligation that's in a little box, right? So I say, if you want to be happy, listen to Sam Horn and find what it is that's on your left and right column and find an elegant way to say it and live it. I want to say thank you very much, Sam Horn. And of course, Rabbi, I'm always delighted that you're on. And we will see everyone next Tuesday at 12:30. Samhorn.com is the mother lode. Find her out there, and I'm going to check out her writing community because I know lots of people who need every bit of that spirit and wisdom that you have showed us today. Thank you once again.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Sam.